The crystalline spires of Vexon City gleamed in the twin suns' light as the diplomatic vessel descended through the atmosphere. Inside, Commander Jace Elliott wiped his damp palms on his dress uniform. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, turning to the woman beside him. Ambassador Vysla Tharin's silver-green skin shimmered with anxiety, her crimson hair rippling like liquid flame as she nodded. "My people believe I died in the Battle of Proxima. Returning with a human mate will cause complications." "Complications?" Jace echoed with a nervous laugh. "That's one way of putting it." 3 years ago, the Signis-Earth conflict had nearly destroyed both civilizations. Vysla had been a key diplomat before hostilities erupted, presumed killed when her ship vanished during the final confrontation. No one knew she'd been rescued by the very man who now held her six-fingered hand in his five-fingered one. The ship settled on the landing platform where a delegation of Signis officials waited, their postures rigid with shock as Vysla emerged. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. "Ambassador Tharin lives," someone shouted, the translator converting the musical Signis language for Jace's benefit. First Minister Kelak stepped forward, his emerald eyes wide. "We mourned you, Vysla. Your memorial stands in the Hall of Remembrance." His gaze hardened as it shifted to Jace. "And you bring one of them to our homeworld." Vysla's spine straightened, her ceremonial robes catching the light. "Commander Elliott saved my life, Minister, and in the time since he has become more than my savior. He is my bondmate." The declaration sent murmurs through the assembly. Interspecies relationships weren't unheard of, but between recently warring peoples and involving a high-ranking diplomat, this was unprecedented. "The High Council will want explanations," Kelak said coldly. "Both of you will be questioned thoroughly." As they were escorted into the city, Jace marveled at the organic architecture. Buildings seemed to grow from the earth rather than being constructed upon it. Despite his diplomatic training, nothing had prepared him for the reality of being the first human to set foot on Signis Prime not as an envoy, but as the mate of one of their own. In their assigned quarters, luxurious but clearly monitored, Vysla's composure finally broke. Her bioluminescent tears glowed azure as they tracked down her cheeks. "Hey," Jace whispered, drawing her into his embrace. "We knew this wouldn't be easy." "They look at you like an enemy," she said, her voice melodic even in distress, "and at me like a traitor." Jace cradled her face, his thumbs tracing the subtle ridges along her cheekbones. "Remember what you told me in that escape pod? War divides worlds, but love can unite them." Vysla's lips curved upward, revealing mother-of-pearl teeth. She leaned forward until their foreheads touched, an intimate gesture in Signis culture. "You remembered the exact words." "I remember everything about that day," he murmured. Their lips met, her skin cooling his human warmth in the perfect equilibrium they discovered together. Vysla's fingers traced the outline of his jaw with reverence. "Tomorrow will bring challenges," she whispered against his mouth. "But tonight, let me show you what it means to be bonded in the Signis way." Her skin began to glow with a soft phosphorescence, illuminating their chamber as clothing fell away, and two bodies, evolved on worlds light years apart, found the cosmic harmony that had made them risk everything to be together. The interrogation chamber in Vexon City's diplomatic quarter felt colder than the vacuum of space to Jace. First Minister Kelak and 5 council members sat opposite, their faces unreadable as they reviewed holographic records. "Explain again how you encountered Ambassador Tharin," demanded Councillor Neva, her crimson hair styled in elaborate spirals that marked her military background. Jace glanced at Vysla, seated separately across the room. Protocol dictated they be questioned individually to prevent collusion. "I commanded the rescue squadron after the Battle of Proxima," Jace explained. "We were searching for survivors when we detected a faint distress signal from a damaged diplomatic vessel." His mind drifted back to that fateful day. The war had raged for 18 months. He remembered his surprise upon finding not a human survivor but a barely conscious Signis diplomat. "She was in critical condition," Jace continued. "Our nations were at war, but I couldn't leave her to die. I violated direct orders to bring her aboard." What he didn't tell them was how Vysla's eyes had fluttered open during emergency treatment, fixing on him with unexpected clarity. "You risk court-martial for an enemy?" she'd whispered. "I'm a soldier, not a murderer," he'd replied. Kellogg's voice yanked Jace back to the present. And rather than reporting her survival, you disappeared. The peace faction within Earth's government had been silenced, Jace explained. If I'd turned her over, she would have become a political prisoner or worse, so we went into hiding, hoping to wait out the conflict. He didn't mention the small mining outpost on Europa where they'd sought refuge, how initial distrust had transformed into curiosity, then friendship, then something deeper. Nights spent learning each other's languages, customs, biology. The first time her skin had illuminated at his touch, a Signis response to profound emotional connection that couldn't be faked. And you expect us to believe this wasn't an elaborate abduction, Counselor Neva pressed. Vizsla rose suddenly, her voice resonant with emotion. I chose him, she declared. After months in hiding, when the ceasefire was announced, I could have returned alone. Instead, I asked Jace to bond with me. She approached the council table, removing her outer robe to reveal the iridescent marking across her shoulder blade, a biologically generated pattern unique to each bonded Signis. This appeared after our first night of intimacy, she said softly. You know our bodies cannot produce the bonding mark without genuine emotional resonance. The council members murmured in surprise. Such evidence couldn't be disputed or falsified. Kellogg's leaned forward. Commander Elliot, were you aware of the significance of this mark? Not initially, Jace admitted, but I've since learned what it represents in your culture. Vizsla moved to Jace's side, their fingers intertwining naturally. During our exile, we became students of each other's worlds. What began as necessity became devotion. Her free hand caressed his cheek, and despite the scrutiny of the council, Jace couldn't resist leaning into her touch. Her skin cooled his in that perfect exchange of temperature that had become so familiar, so essential. We came forward now because we believe our union represents possibility, Vizsla continued. If a Signis diplomat and a human commander can find harmony after everything that's happened, perhaps our people can too. Kellogg's exchanged glances with the other council members. Your testimony will be reviewed. Until then, you will remain under observation. As they were escorted out, Jace whispered, That went better than expected. Vizsla's lips curved slightly. They saw our truth, now we must make them understand our vision. Dawn on Signis Prime brought 3 suns cresting the horizon simultaneously, bathing their quarters in prismatic light. Jace woke to find Vizsla performing her morning meditations, her silver-green skin absorbing the multicolored rays in a display that still took his breath away. Beautiful, he murmured. She turned, smiling. The light communion is sacred to my people. It's how we connect to our ancestors. I meant you, he clarified, earning a luminescent blush across her cheeks. Their moment of peace shattered when the communication panel chimed. Kellogg's stern face appeared. The council requires a demonstration of compatibility. Report to the Cultural Exchange Center immediately. The demonstration turned out to be a series of increasingly intrusive examinations. Medical specialists studied their physiology, documenting how they'd adapted to each other's biological differences. Cultural experts questioned them on intimate customs, testing their knowledge of each other's worlds. Describe the significance of the third phase in the human bonding ceremony, one specialist demanded of Vizsla. The exchange of rings symbolizes unbroken commitment, she answered confidently, though Earth has many marriage traditions varying by region and belief system. Jace faced similar scrutiny. What happens during a Signis crossing ceremony? Families exchange memory crystals containing ancestral experiences, he replied, grateful for their long conversations during their hiding. The crystals are merged into a new formation representing the joined familial lines. The questions grew more personal throughout the day. By evening, exhaustion showed on both their faces. Enough, Vizsla finally said, her patience exhausted. We've submitted to every examination, answered every question. What more proof do you require? Elder Counselor Morith, who had observed silently until now, stepped forward. Understanding and knowledge are not proof of compatibility, merely of study. We must witness true resonance. How? Jace asked warily. The empathic chamber, Morith replied. It will map your emotional responses to one another. No deception is possible there. They were led to an ancient room deep within the complex, its walls lined with bioluminescent crystals that responded to emotional energy. As they entered, the crystals glowed faintly. "Stand at the center and remember," Morith instructed. "Remember why you chose each other above all else." Facing each other, hands joined, they closed their eyes. Jace thought of their first kiss, tentative, exploratory, both terrified of hurting the other with their alien physiology. How that fear had melted into wonder. Vizsla remembered their nights on Europa, learning the contours of a body so different from any she had known. The surprised delight when they discovered compatibility where none should have existed. The crystals blazed with sudden intensity, bathing them in radiance that matched Vizsla's bonding mark. Morith nodded, visibly moved. The chamber responds to truth. Whatever brought you together transcends species. Later, in the privacy of their quarters, Jace held Vizsla close. One test down. She traced patterns on his chest. "The hardest trial remains. Tomorrow we face my family." "And after that?" he asked. Her eyes, mirroring the stars, met his. "After that, we begin building our future, if you still wish to share it with me." His answer came not in words, but in the press of his lips against hers, a promise more binding than any formal declaration. The ancestral home of the Tharan lineage stood within the ancient crystal forest of Naloria. Massive trees with translucent trunks stretched skyward, their canopies refracting sunlight into dazzling patterns. Jace had thought himself beyond awe after weeks on Signis Prime, but this was transcendent. Vizsla's family waited on the threshold of their dwelling, a structure that seemed to emerge organically from the crystalline landscape. Her mother Dyer stepped forward first, her features a mature echo of Vizsla's. "My daughter returns from death," she said, voice tremulous. Her gaze shifted to Jace, uncertainty evident. "With a human bondmate." "Mother," Vizsla greeted, performing the traditional familial gesture, a complex movement of hands that Jace had practiced countless times. To his surprise, Dyer approached him directly. "You saved her when your people sought her destruction. Why?" "Because some things matter more than sides in a conflict," Jace answered honestly. "Her life was one of those things." Something in his response seemed to satisfy her. "Come inside, both of you. The offering must be prepared." Inside, Vizsla's three siblings regarded Jace with undisguised curiosity. The youngest, barely adolescent, reached out to touch his hair, fascinated by its texture. "What's this offering everyone keeps mentioning?" Jace whispered to Vizsla as they were led deeper into the dwelling. "An ancient bonding ritual," she explained, "normally performed between Signis partners, but I've requested permission for us to participate." "Is it dangerous?" Her smile held mystery, only to those whose hearts aren't truly aligned. That evening, they were escorted to a sacred grove where the crystal trees formed a perfect circle. In the center stood a pool of luminescent liquid that seemed neither water nor any substance Jace recognized. The family elder, Vizsla's grandmother, the Lies, presided. "The offering reveals truth between souls," she explained to Jace. "Are you willing to be known completely?" "I am," he answered without hesitation. Disrobing was part of the ceremony, their naked forms illuminated by the bioluminescent pool. They entered the liquid simultaneously, gasping as it enveloped them. Jace felt a peculiar sensation, as though his consciousness was expanding beyond his physical form. "Focus on her," the Lies instructed. "See beyond form to essence." The liquid between them began to glow brighter where their energies connected. Jace suddenly felt Vizsla's emotions as clearly as his own, her fears, hopes, the depth of her love for him. Simultaneously, he knew she was experiencing his innermost self. Their connection intensified until the entire grove blazed with reflected light. The watching family members murmured in astonishment as the pool's luminescence adopted a pattern identical to Vizsla's bonding mark. When they emerged, something fundamental had changed. A subtle telepathic link remained, allowing impressions and emotions to flow between them even without touch. "Grandmother," Vizsla asked, once they were dried and reclothed, "has this happened before?" The Lies shook her head, wonderment in her ancient eyes. "The offering creates temporary communion, not lasting connection. This bond is unprecedented." That night, their lovemaking transcended the physical. Each caress, each kiss was enhanced by their new awareness of the other's pleasure. Silver-green skin against human tan, moving in perfect synchrony, their passion illuminating the chamber as Weisla's natural bioluminescence responded to their shared ecstasy. Afterward, lying together in the peaceful darkness, Jace whispered, "I felt everything you felt." "And I you," she responded, tracing the outline of his face. "There can be no doubt now." "About what?" Her eyes glittered in the darkness. "That despite evolving on worlds light years apart, we were somehow made for each other." 1 year after their return to Signis Prime, the great assembly hall of Vexon City hosted representatives from both human and Signis governments. What had begun as controversy had evolved into cautious diplomacy, and now, remarkably, celebration. Jace adjusted the ceremonial attire Weisla's family had commissioned for him, a blend of human formal wear and traditional Signis designs. Through their mental link, he felt her approaching before she appeared. "Nervous?" she asked, resplendent in robes that complemented his. "About the ceremony. No, about addressing the assembly afterward, terrified." She laughed, the sound like music. "The great Commander Elliot, hero of Europa, afraid of public speaking." "I prefer action to words," he reminded her, pulling her close. "Then consider this action," she whispered, kissing him deeply. The Unification ceremony combined traditions from both worlds. They exchanged earth-forged rings and Signis memory crystals. They spoke vows in both languages. When the officiants, one human, one Signis, declared their union formally recognized by both governments, applause rippled through the assembly. But the celebration marked more than their personal union. As newly appointed joint ambassadors for the interspecies diplomatic corps, they symbolized the peace accord signed that morning. At the reception, First Minister Kellax approached them. His initial hostility had gradually transformed into grudging respect and finally genuine admiration. "When you returned with a human bondmate," he told Weisla, "I thought it political theater or worse. I could not have been more wrong." "Many still disagree with our union," Jace noted, nodding towards several delegates who maintained their distance. "Change comes slowly," Kellax acknowledged, "but it comes nonetheless. Your living quarters in the new embassy complex are prepared, both Earth and Signis architectural elements as requested." Their home, like their relationship, would bridge two worlds, a tangible symbol of their shared vision for the future. Later, as stars appeared over Vexon City, they stood on the balcony of their new residence. Beyond the architectural marvel of the city stretched the crystal forests where they had proven their bond. In the opposite direction lay the spaceport where ships would soon carry other mixed-species couples inspired by their example. "Did you ever imagine this outcome when you found me in that damaged ship?" Weisla asked, her head resting against his shoulder. "Not in my wildest dreams," Jace admitted. "I was just trying to do the right thing in that moment." "One moment changed everything," she mused. "For us and now for our peoples." Her skin began to glow softly, not the intense luminescence of passion but the gentle radiance of contentment. Through their mental link, words flowed without being spoken: gratitude, hope, commitment. As moonlight cast prismatic reflections through the crystal structures surrounding them, they stood at the threshold of possibility. Two beings from different stars, once enemies, now united in purpose and love. War had brought them together against all odds. Peace would be their legacy. And in the vast cosmos that had conspired to unite them, countless other possibilities awaited discovery, for them, and for all who would follow the path they had pioneered across the stars.